The story starts here, Cluedo. This is how most people know this game, but I want to see what it looks like in real life. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Here we are at the Cluedo set. It's an old mansion. Can already feel the history just oozing out of these walls. I've heard so many stories about this place, and there was even talk of making it into a theme park. Who knows, maybe we should make a video on that. But for today, we're focusing on the story. There are 6 characters, so we need 6 actors. We've got our Colonel Mustard, Mrs. Peacock, Mr. Green, Miss Scarlet, Professor Plum, and Mrs. White. They're all friends, and they're all here for the long weekend. They arrive Friday evening, play golf, and just hang around the club until Monday morning when they all leave, except one. One of them doesn't leave. One of them gets murdered. But who does the murder? And with what weapon? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Here's everything we know. Characters have been playing poker all weekend, but they were playing for fun. No money or anything serious. And throughout the weekend, they start getting drunk. They get pretty rowdy. There's a lot of name-calling and insults being thrown around. But nothing too serious, no physical altercations. On Sunday morning, though, things get a little weird. Some of them go out onto the balcony and they see someone hanging from the trees. At first, they think it's a scarecrow, but then they realize it's a person. The guy is still breathing, but he's unconscious. They bring him inside, lay him down, and try to keep him warm. They don't call the police or anything because they're worried about what the cops will do. They decide to hide him instead. They leave him in the dining room and go back to playing their poker game. And later, one of them checks in on the injured man. He tries to ask questions, but the guy doesn't respond. Then eventually, when they think he's asleep, he says he needs help, but he can't remember anything. He doesn't know who he is or how he got there. A few hours later, they all go to bed, and the next morning they wake up, and the injured man is gone. They assume one of them must have called the cops, but that wasn't the case. Someone had taken the injured man and brought him outside and left him by the lake. Later that day, the police show up, and they find the body. It seems like a pretty straightforward case, but there are some strange circumstances. Like, why did the murderer bring the body outside instead of just leaving him in the dining room? Also, the guy was only half dead when they found him by the lake. He must have died afterwards. But how? Was he shot in the head while by the lake? No blood or anything. Did he drown? Well, that would be hard to do without anyone noticing, especially since he would have needed help getting himself upright and out of the water. There's no marks on his arms or legs. Was he pushed? Maybe, but that would mean someone was at the lake at the same time, and no one saw anyone leave the house. And finally, it seemed like the body was staged. Like someone wanted it to look like an accident. Now, I'm not going to tell you the answer, but I will say this. It has to do with this. Yeah, this was important, which brings us to our first question. What was the object used to knock the man out? For the rest of the day, the cops question everyone, but nobody knows anything. They're all good people, or at least they claim to be. Well, except maybe the colonel. He was a convicted war criminal, and he spent the weekend yelling at everyone to shut up so he could finish his game, but he swears he didn't kill the guy. He hated his guts, sure, but he wouldn't kill him, not to mention he was in the other room when it happened. He was taking care of his pet parrot, and speaking of pets, that's our next clue. A dog was seen running around the grounds that morning. A big dog, a Doberman Pinscher.
Oh.
None of the characters had a dog, or at least they said they didn't.
Oh.
But that's not exactly helpful. It could have been a neighbor's dog or something, unless one of them was lying about something. Mrs. Peacock was the first to go. She had a private conversation with the victim on Saturday night, and she was the last one to talk to him.
Oh.
But she swears she didn't kill him. She was just telling him how much she disliked the others. Then she went to her room to cry herself to sleep. But that doesn't really explain why she was talking to him late at night, or more importantly, why she was trying to frame someone else. Oh yeah, remember when I said they were playing poker all weekend? Well, they weren't playing for fun. They were playing to pay off some gambling debts. And Mrs. Peacock owed a lot of money to the victim. She knew if he went to the police, she would go to jail for fraud. That's why she killed him. But what did she use to hit him? Well, we have a theory. See, she said she went to her room crying, but there was no tears. In fact, her face was completely dry, which means she wasn't crying at all. Instead, she was trying to remove some makeup. And if you look closely at the footage, you can actually see what she's removing: red lipstick. the same color as the lipstick found on the victim. She was wearing a hat, so she probably took it off in her room before going to bed. And the hat contained a small amount of that same red lipstick. Plus, she was the only one who had a motive, which makes her the perfect culprit, except she wasn't. See? When we watched her video, we didn't see any weapons. She just disappeared after talking to the victim. But when we checked the security tapes, we found out where she went. After she talked to the victim, she walked into the living room, grabbed a candlestick from the fireplace, and then walked out again. She didn't go to her room at all. Instead, she went to the balcony. The same balcony where they saw the victim hanging from the tree. And it wasn't hard to figure out what happened next. She walked outside, approached the victim, hit him over the head with the candlestick, and then dragged his body into the house and left him in the dining room. But there's a problem. According to the autopsy report, the victim was hit on the side of the head, not the top. So our killer switched weapons. She hit him with the candlestick first, but then used this to knock him out completely. But why leave it behind? Why not take it with her? Well, because she didn't. You see, she gave it to someone else. And if we go back through the footage, we can see who. After hitting the victim, she goes back inside and walks past the colonel without him noticing. He was busy playing with his parrot. Then she approaches Mrs. White and gives her the candlestick. Mrs. White acts surprised, like she didn't know it was there, and then she puts it back where it belongs. Then later, when the cops come, she tells them she saw the colonel arguing with the victim that night, and she assumed he was the killer. But now we have proof that she was involved somehow. So we confront her, and she confesses. She admits that she helped Mrs. Peacock stage the crime scene, but she insists she wasn't involved in the murder itself. After the victim was knocked out, Mrs. Peacock asked her to grab the candlestick, but she refused at first. She didn't want to get involved, but Mrs. Peacock convinced her, saying they needed to make it look like an accident so the police would unsuspect anything. But why would they need to do that? Why not just pin it on the colonel? Well, because the colonel didn't do it, or at least that's what the cops think. They looked at all the evidence, the location of the body, the victim's injuries, and they concluded that the colonel was innocent. He didn't kill the guy. Mrs. Peacock and Mrs. White are the ones who did. But why? The police couldn't figure it out. They tried talking to them, but both women clammed up. They wouldn't say anything. They stood their ground, and the police had no choice but to let them go. Technically, there wasn't enough evidence to hold them. But luckily, we have a theory. While watching the poker game on Friday, we noticed something strange. Whenever Miss Scarlett spoke, she always put her hands in front of her mouth, almost like she was hiding something. So when we questioned her, we asked about it, and she broke down. She admitted that she was covering her face because she was wearing a fake mustache. She was trying to disguise herself. She explained that she, Mrs. Peacock, and Mrs. White were all part of a secret society. They were looking for recruits, and they thought the victim would be a good candidate. They invited him to join them, and on Friday night, they pitched their plan. Their goal was to infiltrate the government and make policies that would benefit them financially. The victim agreed to join them, but he wanted to know more about this mysterious fourth member. He didn't want to join a group where he didn't know who the other members were, but they refused to tell him. They wanted to keep it a secret for now. He pressed them, though, and they started fighting. The victim accused them of trying to con him. So the three women decided to punish him. They wrote down the names of everyone they knew the victim disliked, and they mixed them up. Then they pretended to be one of the people on the list. The victim believed it, and he fell for the trap. When he went to confront that person, they insulted him. They made him feel humiliated, and he got angry. The victim lashed out, punched the woman, and accidentally killed her. When they realized what happened, they panicked, and the colonel came to help. He advised them to hide the body and make it look like an accident. They did as he told them, and hoped for the best. But unfortunately for them, they were all arrested. So there you have it. The killer is Mrs. Peacock. The murder weapon was the candlestick. The motive was revenge. The victim attacked Miss Scarlett after she tricked him into believing she was someone else. Thanks for watching.